is Freelance Illustrator for both Marvel and DC Comics, and much more. Andy Smith, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, how's it going? Thank you for having me.
Good. Really excited to have you on tonight.
Oh man, that's pressure. I'm the big screen. You're excited to have me on. Nothing like a little pressure.
I'm
Okay,
putting you on the spot. Yeah.
that's fine.
Start the show, and I see Brian, you're rocking a new hat there. Where'd you get that from?
Got this new hat from Gerald Sankey. I'll give you his website. It's JerrillSankey.com. Like
Cool.
to
Awesome.
thank him for this beautiful hat. And just a shout out to our newest sponsor.
Awesome. So yeah, Andy, this is definitely a pleasure to have you on the show. Just looking at your background, you're definitely serious about your craft.
Oh yeah, I mean, I always collected comics growing up, and that's what got me into it, and I still do. So that's partial. It extends.
So you've worked for both Marvel and DC. Which growing up, which one of those two really stood out for you, or did you like both of them equally?
Well, the first comic I ever bought was a Captain America, which is Marvel, and from there I did obviously get DC stuff, but I guess growing up as a kid and teenager and all that, I think it was mostly Marvel stuff I resonated with, artists and stuff like that. I mean, I did get into DC stuff just because of, certain characters and whatnot as well. But, I'd say it leaned probably 70% Marvel and 30% DC.
Yeah. So you prefer the Marvel universe in general?
Growing up, I did. Now, well, I mean, I guess now it's it's a 50-50. I mean, I don't really get a
Okay.
lot of current stuff. Because when I still go to the shop every Wednesday. I'm still a big fanboy. My daughter, who just turned 23, she's into comics. So Wednesday, she goes with me now to the comic shop. She has a pull list and stuff. I always got stuff more for the art than the writing. If I liked the artist on a book, I would buy it. If the artist left the book, most of the time I would too. There were definitely certain things I bought because of the writing as well, and it didn't really matter about the art. But
Yeah.
most of the time it was the art and stuff.
Like
Obviously,
what
since it's writing.
about something like Watchmen? Is that
Yeah,
kind
and
of
now that's funny you brought that up. That was
yeah,
one.
is that like in your lane?
Well, it was one. So, in all honesty, I didn't read Watchmen when it came out. I know that when it was coming out, I believe, if I remember correctly, all 12 issues didn't come out over the course of a year. So I didn't read it until probably about the year 2001. A friend of mine read it and couldn't believe I never had after, being in the industry. I started in the business in 91. So you figure 10 years later, I'm talking to a friend of mine and he's like, "Oh my God, you've never read
Like,
it?" And I was like,
what are
"No."
you doing?
So, well, he mailed
you
me
need to
he
check
mailed
this
me a
out.
copy.
Yeah.
And I read it and I liked it. Once again, I'm an artwork guy and I really like Dave Gibbons' artwork. So, that helped get me through it. I mean, it was really, really, a lot to get through. The ending was a little weird, but that's
The ending is a
Moore.
little weird. Yeah.
Yeah. That's Alan Moore for you, though. I did
Mhm.
like it. I'll be honest, I've only read it that one time. But then DC, I
Have
don't
you
know what it
seen
was.
it? Have you seen the movie they made?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
What'd
I
you think
love
of that?
I thought the movie was good. I'm kind of glad they didn't go with that ending
Right,
from
they
the
switched
graphic
it up.
novel.
Yeah. Yeah, they switched it up.
Yeah. I thought for the wider audience, it was a good choice to do that. I think it was a little weird. I think for a comic book, it was fine. Even like I said, I read it and I was like, "Oh, that's a little weird." it's a comic book, so I could deal with it. I think if that was on the big screen exactly the way it was in the graphic novel, it might have been a little too much for going, with a mainstream audience.
Yeah, might have not like hit right on.
Exactly. But so yeah, so Watchmen, back in the day when Dark Knight came out, I bought that, when it was coming out. Now I was always a Frank Miller fan, so and I always liked Batman, so that worked for me. But even the follow-up Dark Knights, right? Where what was it? It was it Dark Knight Strikes Back when Frank came back to it and it was really different, you could say. Um, I still liked it. I know a lot of people were like, "Oh man, Frank's work has really changed," because I think that came out in the early 2000s. But I still dug it. I still thought it was pretty cool. Preacher, I don't know if you guys ever are familiar with the book Preacher. That was a Vertigo book, ran for 60 issues. I bought that
Oh wow. Okay.
story alone, you know. So
What was that one about? I don't think I ever heard of that.
Preacher was a Vertigo book. So, Vertigo was their non-superhero line from the early 90s. They put Swamp Thing under that umbrella. Preacher was
Okay.
basically about a preacher who got these uh, powers, basically the word of God. And it was Garth Ennis, I believe. It's been a while. I believe it was Garth Ennis that wrote it. It was, oh my God, why am I blanking on the artist's name? Unfortunately, the artist passed away a few years ago.
Oh wow.
Steve Dillon. Steve Dillon was the artist on it. And I thought when it came to a pairing of writer and artist, it was just perfect. Steve Dillon drew every
Yeah.
issue of it. And it was either Grant Morrison or Garth Ennis. I'm just blanking right now. But it was a really good series. It was supposed to last for 5 years, and it did. They made a TV show on FX that was 2 seasons, maybe 3. And the guy that starred in it was the guy that played Tony Stark's dad in Captain America: First Avenger.
Okay.
So it was that actor, because there was a different
Right.
actor when they kind of did flashback stuff with Robert Downey Jr. and his parents. So, but it was good. It was a really good book, good series.
So when did your love for comics turn into you saying I can make a comic, and how did you get started, especially in the 90s, because we didn't have the internet to showcase your portfolio?
I don't know if that's
Very
a better thing or
different.
not.
Very different now.
Oh yeah, way different. Well, I started drawing as a kid, and I always like to say that every kid draws, because I mean, think about it. You're a toddler, you get crayons,
Crayons,
you get a coloring book, right?
magic markers.
Magic markers, right? The difference is, and I always use my daughter as an example because she's creative but not drawing. She has a degree in digital cinematography. She likes to
Oh
do,
wow.
yeah, she wants to be a director. So
That
right
sounds
now she does video editing.
that sounds intense.
Yeah, it a lot of parallels when she was going to school with how I kind of was, and my wife, her mom was to her when she was going to school for that, kind of like when I was going to art school with my parents and stuff. It was just, I was going to art school. My parents were like, it was all alien to them. And
They're
even though
probably
my
like, don't
daughter,
do it, right?
right.
Trying
Yeah,
to say you're not gonna
my dad
make any
was a registered
money or
nurse. Yeah. So anyhow, so she would draw as a toddler, but then once as she got older and could do other things, didn't want to do it anymore. Whereas myself and most of my friends that are artists as well have the same story, which is once we could start doing it and start just scribbling around and drawing, we just had to do it. We never let it go.
Yeah.
And eventually we discovered comics. I discovered it through that Captain America I bought when I was about 12, I think it was, on my way home from school, stopping into a 7-Eleven. That's where I saw it. And at that point, I was already drawing. And at that point, I was like, this is what I want to do. People get paid
Yeah.
to do this. Um, and I was just full in. I started collecting comics. My drawing kind of, so before I discovered comics, when I was drawing, I was into like Hot Wheels cars, little
Oh
die-cast
yeah,
cars,
yeah, yeah.
and I was always kind of a gearhead, always into cars in high school and stuff. So I was drawing cars. But once I discovered
Okay.
comics, I was like, okay, I need to figure out how to draw people. And my art teachers and stuff helped me, and they really tried to foster my talent, I guess. And then,
Nice.
reading comic books, the school I went to, called the Joe Kubert School of Cartoon and Graphic Art, which is still around, advertised where? In comic books. So I saw this little ad for it and I showed my parents, and my parents were really supportive. They didn't try and talk me into going to like the regular college route and just taking art classes. So I grew up in Maryland. So
Okay.
I grew up like 10 minutes away from the University of Maryland College. And they didn't once say, well, maybe you should just go there and take art classes and then take, a major in art, but have a secondary major. I was just full bore. This is where I want to go. And that school was 4 hours away in upstate New Jersey. So basically, once again, like you said, before the internet and stuff, I called them up. They mailed me a brochure. I submitted a portfolio, and they would do telephone interviews, but you could do it in person if you wanted to make the trip. And since it was only a few hours away, and my dad was from New York, we just, drove up so I could do the interview in person.
Okay.
When it came to getting a job, one of the nice things about the school was one of the, in your third year, it was a 3-year program. In your third year, they really hammered home putting a portfolio together. Marvel and DC would come by the school to look at portfolios and stuff when you were a senior. And, the nice thing about this school is none of the teachers are full time. They're all part time because their full time job is working, whether it be in the comic book field. When I went to school uh, there were still full time illustrators, which, I mean, I don't want to say it like there's not anymore, but you flip through a magazine these days, you're looking at photographs and stuff for advertising. Back,
Yeah.
when I went to school from 88 to 91, there were still, uh, you could still get a job as an illustrator doing paintings or whatever, spot illustrations and stuff. And like I said, there's still people that do that, but it's not as big a field as it used to be. So, you can make good connections at the school. So for me, I consider myself lucky, I guess, because one of the teachers at the time that was teaching there when I was going as a third year student was a guy named Bart Sears. And I knew his work from comics, collecting comics and stuff. And he happened to start teaching there when I was a senior, but he was teaching juniors, but it was a
Wow.
small school. So you could walk into any classroom and whatnot.
That's great.
Yeah. So I just introduced myself to him at the beginning of the school year and said, look, I don't, obviously have you as a teacher because I'm a third year student and you're teaching second year, but I just want to show you my work and, say hi because I'm a fan and blah, blah, blah. And long story short, he kind of tutored me and mentored me and stuff. I guess he saw something in my work. And throughout the course of my third year, we became friends. And then I think it was around March of my senior year, he was going up to DC Comics to drop some, some work off, and asked me if I wanted to go. And he, introduced me to editors so I could show my
Right.
portfolio and stuff.
Right.
So that's what, he did. I met a few editors. I got some feedback, some
Was
compliment.
it favorable? The feedback
Yeah, the
at
feedback
that
was
time?
good, but they also, and I don't remember exactly what, but they also said, work on this and work on this. But each editor basically said, you know, work up some new samples and, come back up in a few
Come
weeks.
back. Yeah.
Yeah. So I did. I literally went back in like 2 weeks with Bart. And a couple of editors I spoke to before were like, wow, you're back. And I said, well, and I do, because I do remember that. And I remember them saying, wow, you worked up new samples. You came back like 2 weeks later. And I'm like, well, you guys said so. And I want to
Well,
get,
that's funny.
so I went into that school with the mindset of it's a 3-year school and I want to have a job when I graduate because, like any type of profession, you graduate with the Cuber School doesn't have a degree program. But for instance, when my daughter graduated college last year, she was going to get a part-time job until she could, get a job in her field. And it just so happens
Right.
that she was able to get a job doing something in her field, doing video editing, within 2 months of graduation.
Not
So,
bad.
yeah. So, I went back up to,
Especially like in this market, it's like you go on LinkedIn, it's like a bloodbath.
yeah, we're real proud of her. She got a job at the local CBS affiliate here in town. So she works at the CBS, news channel in
Oh
town
wow.
doing video editing and stuff. So she likes it. We're proud
Sounds
of her.
like a
And
great job.
yeah, it's what she went to school for. So, hopefully she actually just had her first year anniversary a couple weeks ago. So,
Oh wow.
yeah. So, I talked to the same editors. I think it was like 2 or 3. And at this point, the 3 of them all basically said the same thing, which was, you're ready, but we just don't
Right.
have anything to give out right now.
So just no open slots
Right.
for new
However,
artists.
one of the editors was sharing an office with another editor, and that other one wasn't there when I went previously. So he, the one guy was like, hey, his name was Dan Raspler. He's like, hey, Dan, do you have a second? Can you take a look at this guy's stuff? It's really good. So Dan looked at it and he was like, yeah, this stuff's cool. Do you want to draw an issue of Suicide Squad? And I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
I want to say no.
Yeah,
So,
what am I
yeah.
gonna say?
so that's how I got my first gig and my foot in the door at DC. So
Wow.
yeah. So it worked out pretty well. And he I told him, I said, I got like it was about a month and a half before I graduate, but don't worry, I'll fit it in while I'm doing my schoolwork before I graduate. And he was like, no, this is they don't do these anymore. But back then they did these things called inventory issues. And an inventory issue was a one-off story. So it was just a self-contained, 22-page story.
All right.
And basically they would have it done. So they would have it in their inventory. So for instance, if the book was running late, they could just go to their files, pull it out, and send that one to the printer. So they would have something to come out on time and the book wouldn't ship late. And it was also a way for newbies to kind of get their foot in the door. And then, for instance, let's say, the person just flakes out while they're doing the job.
Sure.
Well, it still sucks for the company because they paid out, but it's not going to be a book that won't come out because it's an inventory job,
Okay.
you know? So it's kind of, it's a good way. It's also a test because once I graduated, you know,
I was
I
just
got
gonna
the
say it
script.
sounds like a test.
Yeah, it's like a test too, because I said, well, what's the deadline? And he was like, oh, just take your time. It's an inventory job, like I told you. So we want you to do good work and all that. So just take your time. But I mean, I had a few teachers at the school basically say, don't fall for it. Because let's say you go, oh, great. And then you take 7 to 8 weeks to do it. You could just be signing your own death warrant because you can't take that long to do a book if it's 22 pages, at least back then.
Yeah. Right.
You
right,
know.
right.
So I think I did it in like 4.5, 5 weeks, you know, and he was fine with it. And then, you know, I got more work after that and just kept getting work. so it worked out.
Kind of like snowballed into a career ultimately
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah.
So that's
Which is
amazing.
what I wanted to happen.
That's pretty cool, man. I mean, there's
So-
so many I mean, I'm an artist myself. I'm a drummer. You know, there's so
Yeah.
many people that they want to do art, they want to do music, but it's so hard to actually do it full time.
Yeah, you know, and like you said, the thing is the internet. So back then, let's say I didn't have somebody to kind of take me under their wing like Bart did and say, hey, do you want to go up and, you know, when I drop pages off so you can show your portfolio? Because my graduating class was about
That's like that was your in.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, my graduating class was only about 35 to 40 students, I think. So it wasn't huge. But and now out of those, let's say it was 35. Out of the 35 of us, I'd say half wanted to actually draw comic books. You know, there were some people that want to be illustrators. Some people want to do cartoon strips, you know, comic strips like you see in the newspaper. Um, one guy wanted to, believe it or not, do greeting cards, you know, greeting cards. And Hallmark would come by the school for portfolio reviews for third-year students. It wasn't just like Marvel and DC. Other companies came by the school.
Other companies. That's
Yeah,
very cool.
look at portfolios. So I'd say out of say the 15 that wanted to draw comics, I mean, it's been 35 years now, but as far as I can remember, I was the only one that, you know, well, put it this way, Bart Sears, the guy that, you know, we, like I said, we became good friends. We're still best friends. He was in my wedding, you know, 30 years
Oh,
ago.
wow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're great friends. So it worked out besides just like, you know, that last year of my schooling, but I know he didn't take anybody else up, put it that way, to show their portfolio at DC and stuff. I know he helped out other students, but in my third year class,
like not to that degree that he
right. Like I was going over to his apartment.
He was really like pushing you to
exactly.
to succeed. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but if it wasn't that route back then, you would either, you know, if you could make your way to New York, you could call and try and set up an appointment to get in to meet with an editor and then just go in. And, you know, this is 1991, you know, so obviously 10 years before, you know, 9/11 and stuff. And it was a lot. I mean, you could walk in to the building that DC Comics was in and Marvel Comics was in a different part of New York City, different building and stuff. But I mean, you could literally walk into the lobby, get on the elevator back then and just go up to their floor, go up to the receptionist. But the receptionist was, you know, for lack of a better word, like the guard. You know, you couldn't get past her.
Yeah.
They had, you know,
the
they had key
gatekeeper.
cards. Yeah, she was the gatekeeper.
Yeah, gatekeeper.
So it was better to call and make an appointment. You know, you never just want to show up. But if you did just show up, you never know. You could sit in the lobby and maybe if you knew what an editor looked like and you see him walking by, say, hey, so-and-so. But, you know, if you couldn't travel to New York to do that, you would just mail your stuff in, because you would get the address. Every comic book has the address of the company. And you would write a cover letter and make photocopies of your work and mail it in an envelope and hope you got a reply.
So
Basically.
you basically you skipped all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
But I would still, the way I got my foot in the door at Marvel was it's definitely was easier once you were working for one of the companies. So once I started working for DC after I graduated, I moved back to Maryland, back into my parents' house, because it's just my first job. And after I finished that job, I got another one, or I got some regular stuff lined up. So I moved down to Florida with a friend of mine, and I helped a friend move to Florida with his wife and kid, and then I got an apartment close by. And I just happened to meet a couple other comic professionals at one of the local conventions down there that I was a guest at, and they happened to also live in Orlando. So the next thing you know, we got studio space and like an office park.
Oh
So we would
wow.
actually share a studio and work together. And then through that, one of the guys in the studio was working for Marvel, and he was talking to his editor and said, "Hey, I got this guy you might want to look at." And I think I flew up to New York to just, it's always better to meet in person.
Oh yeah,
And
especially back in the day. Now it's
oh
kind of
yeah,
like, oh, let's just do a webcam thing. And
right.
back then, yeah, definitely, you go in, you shake a hand, you make
Well,
eye
back then,
contact, you make an impression.
yeah. Well, back then I did one of the things that a lot of that even teachers at the school said not to do, which is I moved back. I moved to Maryland, back to Maryland, which was still only 4 hours from the city, so I could drive up if I wanted to.
Right.
But the rule of thumb was, if you want to work in comics, if you don't get a job in comics right away, if you can, get a job doing whatever, and get some roommates so you can work on your stuff, to basically try to go into the city once a week.
Oh
Because it
wow.
was, like you said, it was about getting that FaceTime. And there were a lot of people that would get work just because they might be in the office that day showing their work around to editors. And just by chance, an editor might be like, "Crap, I got to get somebody to do these like last 5 or 6 pages because my artist flaked out." And then you're
Yeah.
that warm body walking around, and they might be like, "Well,
Like, hey, you.
you're not 100% there yet, but can you do this for me, in the next whatever amount of time? And if you can do it and deliver, and the stuff looks good, that editor might remember, and then you might get more work that way." And that's how it has
Follow
worked
up.
out.
Yeah,
Right.
follow up work. Right.
Right. For some people.
Awesome.
So, but now, like you said, with the internet, it's this is a thing. I don't know if it's easier. I tell people this at conventions too, because one, you
I
got to
like
get there.
the old way. I mean, the first job I got teaching drums, I went in, introduced myself, shook the
Yeah.
guy's hand, gave him a demo of my playing. And I remember the guy, he said this to me. He said, I really like that approach. He's like, no one does that anymore. I said,
Yeah.
that's, my dad taught me. You look someone in the eye, shake their hand,
Yep.
make a connection. But now I can't remember the last time I've done that or I've seen someone else do that. It's very, it's like we're living in the future now. It's very, very different.
Yeah, it is. And I agree with you 100%. I think a face to face and, handshake and all that and eye contact. It's weird that I'm telling my daughter this, right? Because when she went to college, it was in the school's in Orlando, but she did it up here through online classes and stuff, which a
Okay.
lot of students do. So it's not like she was the only one or a small part of it. Now, when she graduated, we drove down so she could graduate in person and walk across the stage. But, having to basically teach like you said, the stuff of, shake, firm handshake, look them in the eye. Cause I mean, she had a
Make
part-time
that,
job in high school and stuff.
just make that connection, like
Right.
kind of going for the kill.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's just like, yeah, I mean, this is so tangent, I go on tangents, but, when she was in high school, so when I was in high school, I took a class on typing, right? Now, when I was in high school, yeah, there were computers, but nobody had them. It was just businesses.
They're like
that had 'em,
huge,
right?
right? Like
Yeah,
massive.
right. When I was in high school, the most high tech thing you had was a electric typewriter, right? But
Okay.
anyhow, I took a class on typing, so I know how to type, My daughter, who graduated high school in, 2021, all through middle school and high school, not one class on typing, but they give them Chromebooks to take home.
Oh, wow.
So wait, you're giving my kid a Chromebook to take home, but she doesn't know how to type. To this day, she does the old hunt and peck.
Oh, that's like my dad. Yeah, the two finger route.
Yeah. They don't teach cursive. My kid doesn't know cursive.
Wow. Yeah, things are very.
How are you
I've been
supposed to sign
hearing
your name?
that things are very different now
Yeah.
in the grade schools. Yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest. I learned cursive. I hated it, but I knew it.
Yeah.
But I haven't had to do it in 30 years. So I can sign my name, but I don't know how to do it anymore. So, but yeah, it's different. But getting into comics now,
Is
I
it
think
way harder?
I think so, because a
Well,
lot of people want to
there's
do
no
it.
go in person and shake the hand anymore. That's probably done, right? That probably doesn't happen
Unless
anymore.
you're at a convention, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Unless you go to a convention and you meet people there, and
I
if
can
you're
see
lucky
that.
enough to do a portfolio review at one of the big
Mm.
conventions. Other than that, it's just, I guess, Instagram's big because, that's
I was just gonna say social media probably kind of pushes your stuff out there to people.
Yep, Instagram is the big one because that's the most visual one. I mean, obviously with Facebook and YouTube and Twitter or X, you can do visuals, but Instagram's the visual one.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and yeah, it's trying to find out how to contact editors and stuff. I mean, I tell people, I just tell them, I go to their website. I'm sure if you go to any of the company's websites, they have some tab for submissions, and just do what it says, just do what it says. So
Yeah, like when I was a kid, growing up as a teenager, I had different bands, and I kind of, held the reins. I kind of always did, the booking and
sure,
ordering of merch, and I kind of, I mean, I'm the drummer, so funny enough, usually it's like the singer or the guitarist that does this stuff, but I was very involved in that.
sure.
And what was I going to say? What were you just saying?
Oh, I was just saying that go to the website, look under submissions tabs, and do exactly what it says.
Oh, now I remember.
Yeah.
Press kits.
Oh, yeah,
So I
yeah,
used
yeah.
to send out. You have a photo, like maybe 6x8 photo of the band.
Yep.
You'd have a kind of a cover letter probably, and
Mhm.
then you'd have a bio, and then maybe you'd put like a little note for the label, and then you'd ship that out with the demo.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I know I've told some people, some up and comers, I guess, if you can, once again, you can still get the mailing address from any of the comics on the inside in the little
Right.
indicia, they call it, the little small print stuff.
Okay.
And I said, look, even though a lot of people email and do all that stuff, if you mail something to somebody, because a lot of people don't do that anymore,
It'll get opened.
it'll get opened. Right. Like back in
That's huge.
the 80s and 90s, when I was in art school, besides saying, send your samples and send reduced copy, so 8.5 by 11 copies of your work in a 8.5 by 11 envelope, they would also say, pick an envelope. Don't use, back then it was just the standard yellow like envelopes that you could buy in bulk. They would say, get colored envelopes, pink, purple, red, whatever, because it'll stand
So it
out.
stands out. Yeah.
Right, on
In
the
the whole
desk.
huge pile of all the mail that they get. It's like,
Yep.
oh, this blue thing right here. Let me check this out.
Yep. And they also said, if you can afford to do it FedEx, do that,
Oh,
because
yeah.
here's your regular
Well, you
mail.
can get
Here's FedEx.
you can get the signature. You can
That's right.
make sure that they
Yeah.
actually get it. Yeah.
And I think in today's age, it's still not a bad idea if you really want to try and get noticed. Mail something up. I mean, I don't know about you guys. Once again, everything is so, digitized these days.
Oh,
But
yeah.
growing up, I used to love getting mail as a kid. I subscribed to comics to the mail, so I would always be checking the mailbox and stuff. As an adult, you hate getting mail because it's just going to be some bill or some junk that you throw right in the trash. But I still get kind of like, ooh, I wonder what's coming in the mail today.
Oh, that's
So
funny.
if somebody gets mail, at a company, they're probably not used to it. So they might be like, oh, damn, what is this? Compared to like
Yeah, especially
logging in
sending
first
like
thing in the morning in email city,
they're sending like a pink envelope or
Yeah.
something that's like outlandish. And it's like, oh, what is this?
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
I'll open this. Yeah.
Yeah. Chuck a gift card in it. Why not? There were no gift cards back when I was growing. Now you can go out, get a $10 like gift card for something generic and throw that in your envelope. Go, hey, just want to give this to you for taking the time to look through my work.
See, that's a great strategy. That's really good because
At least
you're going that extra mile.
Right. Well, because if somebody did that, because I'll get emails from people saying, hey, I don't know if you're hiring, but here's a link to my work, whatever. But I mean, if I got something in the mail and there's like a $5 gift card in it or something, right? Even if the work wasn't that great, and I'll be honest, if the work really wasn't that good and like not up to snuff at all, I probably wouldn't reply back, even if the person had an email address, just because I'm busy and stuff, right? But if somebody's going out of their way and they throw something like that in there, I would definitely reply back, just because it's like, wow, they went the extra mile.
Yeah, 100%. That's a really good idea. Even like you're saying, even now,
right,
put something together, colorful envelope. Maybe you got, a $10 Chili's, or Applebee's gift card, whatever. And you send it off through FedEx. I bet people can still get in with that type of method.
Yeah. I mean, when I did, so even though I got my first gig before I graduated and stuff, you always have to hustle, and even when I was working on stuff, I would still mail stuff up,
for that next,
right.
That
and
next
I would do a cover letter, but I would, instead of just, a regular, sheet of paper where it was a written out cover letter or even typed out, however I did it, I can't remember. I would do a drawing of a specific character that editor had in like his stable of books, and have that on the cover letter as well, just so that stood out and it wasn't just a piece of paper that had words on it,
Right.
So, because it's just, you got to stand out,
So yeah, you mentioned most of the teachers at your school, they were part-time teachers, but they worked in the industry. So I know they had like real relevant experience. What were some of the more important lessons that they shared with you that really applied once you started working in the industry?
Well, I mean, the biggest one, every teacher, it didn't matter if they were working in comics or Illustrator, graphic design, is always deadline. Just deadline, meet the deadline. And if you don't meet the deadline, communication is key. Be honest and talk to them.
Yeah.
The worst thing you want to do is, let's say, a couple scenarios. One is, okay, here's a 20-page job, whatever it is, and you got 4 weeks to do it. So this is the day it has to be done by. Can you do it? If you can, awesome. Say yep. And then when I have something like that, I would try to do 4 to 5 pages a week to send up, because everything back then was on like a voucher system. You fill out this little invoice type thing, and you could get paid like every 5 pages or so. So if you want to get paid every week, you mail them up weekly. But let's say I'm 2 weeks in, and I'm like, man, there's no way I'm going to finish this off in 2 weeks. Shoot them an email, give them a call. You still have a 2-week window, and just say, hey,
Yeah.
I might be a couple days late. Is that cool? And if they're like, no, then well, they might. It could be that type of deadline where they don't have any
Could
wiggle
be.
room.
Yeah.
And if they can't, you just say, once again, you need to be honest with yourself and with them. If you think you can get it done without sacrificing the quality, then buckle down and do it. But if you know that you're like, I can't do it, just tell them, then I can only do
like half of it. Right.
Whatever. You don't want to screw them over, because they'll remember that. Another thing too is,
and it's probably a pretty small industry, comics.
It is. No,
like kind of maybe not small. Maybe that's the best word. Like it's probably pretty tight knit, right?
Yeah. Everybody talks. I mean, look, back then, it's funny because, back then, and for frame of reference, when I say that, I always mean early 90s. You had Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, and an Image Comics just started, right? There might have been a few smaller publishers than that, but that was basically the game in town. Now, obviously, you've got Marvel, DC, Image, Dark Horse, like Mad Cave, Vault, Boom, IDW.
We just interviewed a woman from Vault, right?
Okay. So there are a lot more companies that, even though they're independent companies, they're doing better than independent companies from back then, right? Independent companies from back then, you were kind of taking a big chance.
Yeah.
They might go like, here's a job, but then you're hoping you get paid,
Oh, wow.
And obviously, and even today, independent companies, the pay's a little lower because, they're smaller companies and stuff. But you can, it's still a small industry, but there is a wider berth of publishers that have a lot of different genres.
Okay.
When I got in, it was mostly, superhero stuff. And you might still think that because that's what mostly Marvel and DC do. But if you go to a comic shop, and this is another reason I still go every Wednesday, besides being a collector and stuff, I like to see everything that's coming out. And there literally is something for everybody out there to read. I mean, my wife likes mystery novels, and I tried like a decade or so ago for Christmas. I got her a hardcover graphic novel that was co-written by one of her favorite mystery novel writers. But it was a graphic novel, and she just couldn't wrap her head around it, so she never even opened it. It just sat there.
Where did you end up donating it, or what happened?
Yeah, I just ended up. Yeah, when we were going through stuff, I doing that every few year purge.
Yeah,
we were
right.
cleaning out some books and stuff, and I was like, oh, I remember getting you this. And we just donated it, whatever. But it's just it really, it's sad in a way, because most of my I have two groups. Most of my friends that do this for a living either still read comics or they at least collect them still, from the 70s and before. My friends that are not into comics read novels. And even though I tell them, I go, well, you know what? If you like science fiction novels, there are sci-fi genre comics. It's something about it. They don't understand it. Like my wife was like, I don't know how to read this. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You read it left to right,
Left to right.
top, bottom, and it is, I guess
That's
what she
funny.
meant, I think what she really meant was following the balloons, because if you look back, you know, in the 50s, 60s, 70s, whatever, most of the balloon placement was up top. So you could just go left, right. But now, and this was how it was when I got into comics, they can be wherever in the panel,
Right.
and there is a language to reading comics. And yes, it is obviously left, right, and you keep going in that
You
pattern down
keep
the
going
page.
down. Yeah.
But if you're looking at a panel and there's a balloon at the top right, and then there's a balloon at the bottom left, you don't read left, right. You read top, then you go to the
Right.
one on the left.
All right.
So, but I mean, once you read one, you get that and you just go, oh, okay. But she's just, once again, nope, I'm good.
Just
So,
totally over
yeah,
her head.
yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, you've been in the industry for decades. Like, how has the industry changed compared to when you started, and like, where do you really see it going in the future, especially with all this technology, AI, and all of this stuff coming into the picture?
Well, I mean, the big change is from the creative side is a lot of newer artists will work 100% digital.
Oh, wow.
So they have no physical original artwork anymore. When I started, and it's still a production line, a comic book is still a production line. And what I mean is you have the writer. Okay, so when I got in, the normal credits on a comic book would be writer, penciler, inker, colorist, letterer, editor. In this day and age, it more often than not, it's writer, artist, letterer, colorist. And then sometimes, very few times here, different in other countries, but in America, it's very rare. But sometimes it'll be writer, artist, letterer. So in other words, there's not many penciler inkers anymore.
Okay.
Most people do everything. They pencil it and they ink it. Some people do it all, where they do the penciling, the inking, and the coloring.
Like
I
a
do,
one-stop shop.
right. I do, and from day one, I could always pencil and ink my own work. But because it was so production line oriented back then, even though I could say, well, guys, I can ink my own work, they were like, no, we already have somebody. It's like, okay.
Okay.
Because, I don't want to take work away from somebody. But
Sure.
nowadays, a lot of people do their own, submit the full black and white art. So the editor just has to shoot it over to somebody to color it. And a lot of those guys work 100% digital.
So what do you think about art mixing with AI and the whole, generation shift we're kind of experiencing right now?
So when it comes to AI, it is a tool. I've messed around with it, not for anything, publication wise. I mean, I'm old school. I like doing things on paper. I mean, I'm sitting in front of a computer and then obviously, but what you can't see is I have this big tablet called a Cintiq, which is diagonal wise 27-inch, so it's pretty
Okay.
big,
Yeah.
that I can draw on if I want to work digital. But to my left is my wooden drawing table where I sit most of the day with paper and pens and stuff.
Nice.
The AI is good for concept stuff, you know, like, and I'll give you an example. A friend of mine used to do character design and stuff. And when he would design characters, he would get a written description, from, and I've done character design before, not on the scale my friend had. But point
Right.
is, when he would do character designs for like video game companies, he would get a written description of the character. And then he would basically go to Google and kind of put together a kind of like a vision board of different aspects that he would want to utilize in the character design to kind of get his imagination going and
Get the juices going, right?
right.
Mm.
So, so the old way would be go to Google, type in stuff, and then right at the top, click images, and then all these images would come up. And I know people that would save them to a Pinterest board or something like that. Well, now with AI, you can kind of do the same thing, except you can customize it more. So you could be like, oh, I got to design this type of character. Well, I'm looking for this type of thing. Type it in and get a bunch of different variations, to get the juices flowing that way. I've seen, obviously scrolling through different social media stuff, I've seen people show like some characters and you can just tell, or at least I can, that's 100% AI.
So
And
what tips you off
the
that
style of the art.
style?
Oh yeah. The finished style of the art, in regards to like how it's drawn, like the drawing style. I've seen at least 8 or 9 different posts. I'll say posts. I mean, it's people because all the posts are from different people. So
Right.
let's say 8 or 9 different people post like images of superheroes that, they've created. So not like, Superman or anything that's out there, but superheroes they've created. And yeah, they might be cool looking, but the style all looks the same. And I'm like, it's AI. I'm like, oh, it's AI.
Yeah. Interesting.
And when it comes to comics, is there going to be a time where somebody would be able to produce a whole comic book using AI? Yeah. I mean, somebody could probably do it now.
Right.
And what I always use my wife as an example because she's not into this world at all that I'm in. And if somebody did that, I could probably show it to her and she would have no clue that it was AI.
Yeah.
But I guarantee everybody I know that does this for a living would know, because it's not just a picture and a panel. One of the lost arts, and I say it's a lost art because once again, I go to the comic shop every week. I look at probably 70 to 80% of what comes out every week just by flipping through it. Just
Yeah.
to see what it looks like. Because once again, if I see something that looks cool, I'll buy it, even if it's only that 1 month.
Because it
And
might influence you, right?
yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You're always learning, you're a drummer.
Yeah.
Some drummer might be 10 years younger than you, and you're like, holy shit, that dude's rad. And you pick something up
Well,
from him.
what's amazing about that is I've got an 11-year-old kid that
Yeah.
I'm teaching. And I remember one time we were going over a cover song because I do a lot of covers with people.
Sure.
And we just work on feel and groove and stuff like that. But I remember we went over a song. I was like, oh, it's like this. She's like, no, it's like this. I'm like, I don't know. I'm not sure. Let's play it back. So we played it back a couple times and say, you know what? You're right. It is like that.
Yeah.
So I've been playing for, close to 25 years. This kid started when he was 9 or 10.
Right.
And he has that ear that can really hear all the notes, the hi-hat, the ride cymbal.
Yep.
It's pretty incredible. But to your point before, just in terms of like, okay, I can see this as AI, I can see this as more human based. It brings me back to the 80s where drum machines came out and everyone was worried about, all the drummers, right? Were worried. I mean, I was born in 87, but I hear stories.
Sure.
So all the drummers were, they're like terrified that, oh, okay, the drum machines are going to replace us in the studio live. But that never happened because you can hear it, like if you hear like a Lady Gaga song, if it is real drums, it's been beat corrected, quantized. So it's basically a robot anyways at that point, versus you listen to drums on, say, a Beatles record.
Right.
That's the actual drums you're hearing. That's the
Well, that's the thing
actual
with
take.
singing, right? With like, was it auto tune, whatever it's called? I mean, I can't sing for shit, but I could probably record something,
Yeah.
and hell, I could probably record myself singing and probably run it through AI and have it make it sound better. So you still can tell it's my voice. And then somebody would go, I didn't know you could sing, because that's something that my buddies and I talk about that are around my age, which is, there's so many musical artists out there now, singers and stuff.
Oh man, I know.
But when I was growing up listening to music in the 70s and 80s, I thought there were a lot then, but the difference was it was just the microphone and their voice and a dude on a guitar, a dude on a bass and drums, and that's it. There wasn't any, let's make this sound better in post.
No.
Now it's let's make this sound better in post.
Well, I was telling Kev one time, I said, I went to this one studio in New York, and this is years ago, but the guy said, anything that comes out of my studio, the drums are quantized, they're beat corrected. I said, yeah, but I just did the takes good. It sounds good. It sounds natural. Let's just go with the original takes. He said, no, anything that comes out of the studio has to be quantized. So there, and this was a guy who owned a studio in, I think, Poughkeepsie area, New York. So there's people that are like that. And it's like, okay, it's got to be perfect. It's got to be like a robot. But then in my perspective, even there's one part that he quantized and it screwed up the part.
Sure.
It was this like cymbal part where I was kind of moving around the cymbals. And I said, see, the quantizing messed it up. He's like, okay, well, we'll record it again. So I went in the booth and did it again. And then we wrote that one to the track.
Sure.
But it's just strange that they're so into this digitalizing, digitizing, however you want to put it, when it comes to music. So it's kind of interesting with art, the AI is starting to move a little closer.
I think with AI, like I said, somebody's going to try and do it, a whole comic that way. Whatever.
Oh yeah.
I don't think it's going to catch on for a couple reasons. One, there's always going to be somebody that likes to draw and likes to paint and create, whether it's, like I said, I know guys that do their stuff 100% digital and don't have anything on paper.
Right.
I mean, that's their choice. I don't care. I mean, I've done hybrid where I've drawn it on my, in Photoshop or whatever, but then I print it out and I finish it on paper. I'm still drawing it. So I think there's that. I think there's always going to be that creativity. And I also think, put it this way, when I got into comics in 91 as a pro, people were saying, even in art school, when I was in art school, that's a dying medium. In the 70s, I would, obviously I became friends with artists and stuff that started working in the 70s. And even in the 70s, I would hear stories from these guys where they were saying, oh, it's a dying medium. They said it in the 60s. They said it in the 50s. I don't even think print will die. I mean, yeah, you can read comics digitally, and
I
I've
think
got
people want that physical. People
exactly.
want, I think, especially, I was talking to someone the other day. They said, I started, this was a girl maybe in her 20s. She said, I started collecting CDs and DVDs.
Right.
I said, see, because, everything's streaming. You got to pay for all, 5 different streaming services. If you cancel it, you have no access to any of it. If you got the original copy, of Lion King, boom, just pop
It's
it in.
yours. Yeah.
So I think that's kind of going to come back.
I mean, look at records. 15 years
Vinyl.
ago,
Yeah.
records were nowhere to be seen except in like used record shops. But now
Yeah.
there's vinyl being printed. Bands
All
are
new
doing
stuff.
vinyl again.
Yeah. All new
you
vinyl.
know?
Yeah.
I don't think tapes will ever come back, and I don't have a problem with that. I don't think, but records have I mean, my daughter likes she has a record player. She has some records and stuff.
See, there you go.
There's something about the sound of a record,
100%.
So I don't think it'll go
the
away.
warmth,
Yeah.
It's like the tone, the warmth.
Yeah. And with comics, it's like novels too. I mean, I have a good collection of digital stuff, but if it's something that I bought digitally because I was on the fence, because let's be real, stuff does take up space, as you can see, and that's only a portion of my room. But if I see something or get something digitally, comic wise, book wise, and I really like it, I'll go buy the physical copy of it.
Yeah.
Now on the flip side, if I'm downsizing and I'm getting rid of stuff, I might be like, I don't really have an interest and don't really want it anymore. But digital stuff isn't as expensive, so I will probably buy it digital so I still have it, so it doesn't
Backup
take up
copy.
space,
Yeah.
and then get rid of the hard copy.
Right.
But I also realize that anything I have digital could be lost forever. And if it is, I don't care.
And what you just said, what I did something kind of similar. Like with all of my CDs, I exported, all the tracks into MP3 quality.
Yep.
Through it on my iPod. So no more, and it still works. I mean, I got to plug it into the wall, but the thing still works. So it's like, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's nice for convenience, but at the same time, like, look, if I'm flying somewhere, I'd much rather have my iPad that's loaded up with stuff than go, oh, I got to pick and choose a couple things to take with me, to carry on the plane or whatever. Right. But the other thing I was gonna say with AI is, it's going to replace obviously some jobs, unfortunately, but I really don't think, I think it'll affect some creative stuff. Like I could see, how I was saying earlier, magazine ads, 50, 60 years ago used to be, some of them were photographs, but some were illustrations. They would pay an illustrator to create an ad. And then of course, Photoshop came around. I mean, before that, they could take pictures and stuff, obviously, and mock it up. But then Photoshop made things easier, and illustrators kind of died away, unfortunately. I could see somebody going, take any magazine, go to an ad. I don't know why I just thought of like a perfume ad, but there's perfume ads, whatever. And I'm assuming that most of those ads are still like, okay, set the product up, take a photo of it. And then, whether you're finding a background and putting it all together in Photoshop, blah, blah, blah. You could probably just take the photograph of the object now and take it into AI and be like, okay, I want an ad that is
like
8.5x11 format magazine. I want these elements in it.
Do X, Y, and Z. Go do, you prompt it. Right. Okay, go do this, go do that.
Right. And it spits out this ad. Now, I would prefer it not be done that way, but
it could be. Yeah.
It could be.
It's possible.
Yeah.
But hey, man, yeah, we're at the top of the hour.
Sure.
Yeah, we could have easily went another hour. We'll have to get you back so we can get
Yeah.
part 2.
No problem.
Before we get out of here, did you want to leave our audience with any closing thoughts, and where's the best place for them to find you at?
Yeah, I mean, once again, thank you guys for having me. And andysmithart.com is the best place. That's my website. That's pretty much my name on X, on Instagram, Andy Smith Art, Facebook. I said X, YouTube. YouTube's the same thing. Andy Smith Art. I got a YouTube channel where I do drawings and movie
wow.
reviews and stuff like that as well, that I try to, do stuff weekly on. And
we'll have to get you back on to talk about your books. We didn't even
sure.
we didn't touch that.
Yeah, no problem. I'm always down. It's fun.
Very cool.
Yeah, no, it was amazing, man. You shared a lot of amazing insight, and anybody listening, go check them out and buy something.
There you go.
That's right.